Hey, what's up guys? Welcome to the channel. UFC 274 had an amazing main event between Charles Oliveira and Justin Gaethje, and immediately following UFC 274, I did a live stream post-fight. I went over all the notable fights and answered all your questions at the end of the stream. But that stream was an hour and a half long, but I talked about the main event in it. I will link that stream down in the description if you want to go check that out as well. But people have asked me in the past to do more condensed videos just on more important fights like the main event, Charles Oliveira versus Justin Gaethje. And also, YouTube tends not to promote longer videos like an hour and a half video to other people, so it doesn't really help grow the channel as well after the live stream has ended. So this video is going to be like a breakdown and reaction to the main event, Charles Oliveira versus Justin Gaethje at UFC 274. If you watch the hour and a half stream, it's a little bit repetitive, but I wanted to go over this fight in a dedicated, more condensed, shorter video for people who may have not seen the live stream. If you want me to do this for more fights on UFC 274, comment down below and let me know. And do me a favor, don't forget to like the video. Okay, so let's talk about the main event of UFC 274, Oliveira versus Gaethje. Charles Oliveira defends his lightweight title against Justin Gaethje. And yes, I know I said he defends his title. Charles Oliveira is the lightweight champion. The only place he's not the lightweight champion is on the UFC's website, and maybe when the UFC decides to write his check for his next fight. That's the only place that Charles Oliveira is not the champion. There's so many different reports of scale discrepancies. Apparently, the scale in the back was off a little bit, so Charles Oliveira thought he was on weight, and then he ends up missing weight on the extra scale by 0.5 of a pound. It's not like it was a huge weight miss. I still consider Charles Oliveira the lightweight champion, and I really, it's going to be kind of annoying that the fact that this doesn't count, when it goes down in the history books as a title defense for Charles Oliveira. But for us hardcore MMA fans who watch the sport, we know Charles Oliveira is the lightweight champion. This was a title defense against Justin Gaethje. And what an amazing performance by Charles Oliveira. I have been a big believer in Charles Oliveira for a long time, and he just continues to prove me right. I don't remember ever picking against Charles Oliveira in the past few years. I picked him against Kevin Lee. I picked him against Tony Ferguson. I picked him against Justin Gaethje. I picked him against Michael Chandler. I picked him against Dustin Poirier. Charles Oliveira is still young, but he's been in this sport for so long, and he looked amazing tonight against Justin Gaethje. He wins via first-round rear naked choke. My breakdown and prediction for this fight was pretty much spot on. I said second-round rear naked choke, but my analysis for this fight was literally perfect. And Charles Oliveira came out in this fight. He was already stripped of the belt. Imagine he goes out there, drops it to Justin Gaethje. He missed weight. He had a hard weight cut. He tried to make the weight with the extra hour. Meanwhile, Gaethje's rehydrating, already 165 pounds, while Oliveira is still draining his body. And a lot of people ask me, are you changing your pick because Oliveira's having this tough weight cut? I was not going to change my pick. And Charles Oliveira just showed exactly why he is the best 155.5 pounder in the world. He went out there immediately with all the pressure of the world on him, went out there, started walking Justin Gaethje down, lighting him up with shots. And Charles Oliveira just never takes a backward steps. It's unreal. He clips Justin Gaethje with a massive right hand early, wobbles Justin a little bit. Then later in the fight, a little bit later in the fight, Justin Gaethje catches Oliveira with an uppercut. And this definitely hurt Charles Oliveira. But I don't know if it necessarily dropped him. I know technically it dropped him, but I talked about this in the breakdown and prediction. Charles Oliveira has a very unique skill set or very unique strength in his fight game where if he gets clipped with a shot, he can just fall to his back because what are you going to do? Jump into his guard? Very few people are going to want to jump into Charles Oliveira's guard. He has the ability to submit you. He's so good. His jiu-jitsu and his submission threat is so deadly that even if you rock the guy, you do not want to jump into his guard. Charles Oliveira jumps right back up, immediately starts walking Justin Gaethje down. I talked about it on the post-fight stream, but we talk about it a lot in these fights. You have guys, okay, you got to go out there and earn their respect. It doesn't matter what you do to Charles Oliveira. He will continue to walk you down, and that's exactly what he did. And Gaethje landed like one or two really hard leg kicks in this fight. And when I look at elite world-class fighters, one thing I use to really gauge guys' skill sets is making adjustments mid-fight. Charles Oliveira ate one of Justin Gaethje's nasty leg kicks, and Gaethje was throwing the calf kicks too, which those are hard to address. And Charles Oliveira immediately starts checking the kicks, immediately starts lifting his leg up so high that Gaethje's literally doing a 360 because he's completely missing the leg. He continues to march forward. He gets clipped by a massive right hand from Justin Gaethje, and they called it a delayed knockdown in the commentary. I don't know if that's the case. I think Charles Oliveira makes a conscious decision when he gets clipped with a big shot to fall to his back, just because why stay standing? You're a little bit hurt. You're a little bit, dazed and confused. Why wait there to wait for a follow-up shot that might put your lights out? So he gets caught with a right by Justin Gaethje, drops to his back. This one actually cuts him open a little bit. He starts bleeding. Justin Gaethje, of course, he's not going to jump in that guard because he's worried about the submission threat of Charles Oliveira. Backs off. The ref tells Charles Oliveira to get up. What does Charles Oliveira do? He jumps up and continues to walk Justin Gaethje down. He's throwing nasty knees in the clinch. I mean, Charles Oliveira, his clinch game is so underrated. It's one of his best skills in the fight game. He's a well-rounded fighter, but the way he throws knees in the clinch, I mean, they were hurting Gaethje badly, and he continued just to walk Justin Gaethje down. Justin Gaethje was trying to brawl with him. And with a guy like Charles Oliveira, a lot of people, they think that he's almost like he's just known as a submission artist and a grappler. He has the most finishes in UFC history, has the most submissions in UFC history. But Charles Oliveira is more than just a grappler. He has amazing technical striking. And one of the most underrated things about Charles Oliveira is his power. And he continued to walk Gaethje down. He landed 2 straight right hands. They kind of stung Gaethje a little bit, but he was able to stay on his feet. Gaethje, when he gets clipped, it's like he just tries to brawl with you. And Justin Gaethje was throwing massive hooks that, had there been a little bit of a different distance management, I think it could have ended the fight. Gaethje threw one massive hook that missed so badly, he kind of stumbled and fell onto his knees. Now, had Charles Oliveira been a little bit closer, that could have been fight ending because Charles Oliveira would have snatched up his back and then it would have been over. I said in the lead up to this fight, if Charles Oliveira ends up in the grappling, any grappling exchange for Justin Gaethje, unless it's the end of the round or he scrambles out of it really quick before Charles cements the position, it is over for Justin Gaethje. And Justin Gaethje knew that. And then eventually Charles Oliveira just continues to walk him down. He's throwing jumping switch kicks. He's throwing flying knees. They're partially landing, being blocked by Gaethje. Gaethje's kind of hunching over. And one thing that's also awesome about Charles Oliveira and what he did in this fight, every time he would go into the clinch, he would look for that single collar, and Gaethje, he would start to break Gaethje's posture, and Gaethje would start to duck down and throw uppercuts. Oliveira would immediately start looking for a guillotine attempt. It was crazy. He did it multiple times in this fight, made Gaethje immediately back out. But Charles Oliveira just walking Gaethje down, Gaethje throwing wild hooks, clips Gaethje with a massive right hand, and he flash KO'd Justin Gaethje. Mark Goddard almost stepped in, but Gaethje kind of woke up when he hit the ground. Oliveira, instead of trying to swarm him with strikes and maybe missing and Gaethje popping back to his feet, he immediately goes into grappling mode. He's in like a partial rear naked choke position, but then Gaethje's kind of sliding out of it, so then he starts to look for an arm bar, and then Gaethje's kind of adjusting there, and then Oliveira starts to look for a triangle. This all happens in a matter of like 15 seconds. And then Justin Gaethje kind of slides out. Oliveira's like, nah, you ain't getting away from me. He jumps on Gaethje's back, locks up the rear naked choke. Gaethje tried to fight out of it. He tried. He pulled the arm down once. Charles Oliveira readjusted. If Charles Oliveira gets on your back, I mean, I don't know how Michael Chandler got out of it, but if Oliveira gets on your back, chances are he's going to choke you out. And Gaethje taps, and he almost might have tapped so late that he went out anyway. But Gaethje taps out. How ironic is that? Gaethje talked all the crap in the build-up of how, Charles Oliveira is a quitter. I'm going to bring the quit out of Charles Oliveira. And look what Gaethje ends up doing. He ends up tapping out to Charles Oliveira. And what a win for Oliveira to face adversity like that against a guy like Justin Gaethje. And with all this background drama going on about you lost your belt the second the fight starts, and now it's a vacated belt and you're not really defending your belt, and only Gaethje can win the belt tonight. To go out there and put on a performance like that is just incredible. How can you doubt Charles Oliveira? He just looks so good just everywhere. He's such a well-rounded mixed martial artist. He was throwing teep kicks to the body. He was chopping Justin Gaethje's legs as well. Not very many of them. I mean, it wasn't a particularly long fight, but Charles Oliveira landed some good kicks to the legs of Justin Gaethje. Justin Gaethje, every single kick he was throwing after those first one or two, I think it was, Charles Oliveira was just lifting his leg up and Gaethje's leg was just going right underneath of it, or Charles was kind of turning into it and checking the leg kick. Charles Oliveira is just so good, and I'm so sad that we missed out on a potential Khabib Nurmagomedov Charles Oliveira fight. That fight would have been so much fun, considering Khabib, is grappling heavy. He wants to drag you to the ground and pound you, and Oliveira is so dangerous off his back. One thing I did forget to mention, after one exchange midway through the first round, I think it was right after Oliveira got rocked, he pulled guard, but he didn't have the right positioning. Gaethje was pulling out real quick, so they just stood back up. It really was uneventful, but I wanted to mention that. I mentioned it in the post-fight live stream. But Oliveira is the best 155-pounder in the world. He went out there, and especially once they were on the ground, he made Gaethje look like he didn't even belong. We know that Justin Gaethje defensive jiu-jitsu is not very good. We saw it in the Khabib fight, and we know how good Charles Oliveira is. So I knew once they got down there, as soon as I saw Gaethje go down and Oliveira pounce on top of myself, this is over. This is over. There's no way that Justin Gaethje was going to get out of the clutches of Charles Oliveira. And sure enough, Charles Oliveira gets that rear naked choke. What an amazing performance. I can't believe it. Does kind of suck that technically on paper, on the UFC's website, he's not the champion. But I believe us fans still consider him the champion. I think the media still considers him the champion. The UFC is going to... Charles Oliveira will be in a title fight in his next fight. It's just kind of a little bit weird. Let's say he fights Islam Makhachev. I believe Islam Makhachev is going to be the next opponent for Charles Oliveira. It's going to be for the vacant lightweight title. That remains to be seen because Charles Oliveira did call out Conor afterwards. I hope they don't make that fight. Conor hasn't won a lightweight fight since 2016, which is just insanity. So I hope he doesn't get that fight. I think it will be Oliveira versus Islam. Probably the Abu Dhabi card in October for the vacant lightweight title. But it does kind of suck because Charles Oliveira is building this legacy where he won the belt against Chandler when it was vacated after Khabib retired. Then he defended the belt against Dustin Poirier. Then he defended the belt against Justin Gaethje. And now, if he goes and beats Islam Makhachev in a hypothetical scenario, now he's defended the belt against Islam, but technically, now he's only really defended against Dustin Poirier because he only has one title defense on paper. So it'll kind of suck for his legacy, but I truly believe after this win, you look at Khabib's, 29-0, a lot of those early fights were against nobodies. It was really the later portion of his UFC career where he really kind of, started to make the claim for the lightweight GOAT status with the Conor win, the Dustin win, the Justin Gaethje win. But now you have Charles Oliveira who beat Gaethje quicker than you beat Gaethje, who beat Dustin Poirier. I don't know if it was quicker or not than Khabib. But you have those two wins over two similar opponents who are the best opponents that you've beaten. And now if Oliveira goes out there and beats Islam Makhachev, I think the case can already be made. But I think if Oliveira goes out there and beats Islam Makhachev, and especially if he does it dominantly, Charles Oliveira is the GOAT lightweight of the UFC. And I can't wait for that fight. Stylistically, Islam Makhachev is grappling heavy. He's going to want to take Oliveira down, I would think. And Oliveira is so dangerous on the ground. So if Islam comes in and he doesn't want to try to grapple Oliveira, what's he going to do? Because I'm telling you right now, if Islam Makhachev decides to try to stand and trade with Charles Oliveira, it's over. Charles Oliveira is just so technical. And I think, a lot of people have talked about his heart. Justin Gaethje talked about his heart. Charles Oliveira has some of the best heart that we've seen in MMA. He gets clipped and hurt badly, jumps right up, continues to walk forward. How often do you see that? I talked about it earlier in the video. Oh, you got to get your opponent's respect. AK, you got to clip them so they don't pressure and get as wild on you. It doesn't matter to Oliveira. Oliveira will continue to move forward even if he's hurt. Has some of the best clinched knees in the entire game. Has a really high fight IQ. If he gets hurt, he drops to his back. He knows you're not going to jump into his guard. Has amazing submissions. I mean, that doesn't even need to be said. And he's continuing to evolve. I'll say this a million times over and over again. You guys have heard me say it. Every single time Charles Oliveira comes out, he is more improved. He is better and better each time out. We've seen it time and time again. He's so good. He makes adjustments in fights. The only real liability for Charles Oliveira is his striking defense. He has a nice tight guard, but he just gets hit too much. Imagine if I'm assuming he's working on that in camp. Imagine we get a Charles Oliveira that has a little bit better striking defense, where he's not getting hit as much. I don't know how you beat that Charles Oliveira, and Charles Oliveira is still young. He could continue to reel off win after win after win. I think he's now on 11-fight win streak, 12-fight win streak. If he can shore up that striking, liability, Charles Oliveira will cement himself as a lightweight GOAT, and I think he will do that anyway, especially if he beats Islam Makhachev in his next fight. I hope and pray they don't make Charles Oliveira versus Conor McGregor. I don't think they will, but you never know with the UFC. They see dollar signs with Conor. Charles Oliveira obviously is going to want a big paycheck. But all I know is for his next fight, the UFC should do the right thing. They should look at the scale discrepancies. They should look that it was only 0.5 of a pound. They should pay Charles Oliveira championship pay-per-view points for his next fight, regardless of who he's facing. But I'm really looking forward to it. Charles Oliveira, you guys know if you've been watching the channel at all, Charles Oliveira is one of my favorite fighters to watch. He is never in a boring fight. His skill set, he's so well-rounded, and he's always looking for the finish. Doesn't matter if you clip him. He will continue to walk forward and look to finish you. He's throwing crazy techniques, flying knees, jumping switch kicks. It's just Charles Oliveira is so fun to watch, and it's amazing because he's still young and he's staying active too. He just fought in December. Now he's fought in May. Will probably at least fight one more time this year, maybe 2 more times this year. Depends what the UFC needs him for. But Charles Oliveira is young. He's in his prime. He looks to be the best in the world. I don't know who beats him. I wish we could get Khabib Nurmagomedov out of retirement and we could see that matchup. That's a fight that I've wanted to see even when Khabib was champion, but I doubt that ever happens. But this is going to be a fun time for the lightweight division. It sucks with a little bit of the debacle, but the belt is just a promotional tool at the end of the day. It doesn't necessarily matter. I know it's a little bit weird situation, but we'll see Charles Oliveira with the lightweight belt probably wrapped around his waist after his next fight because he is just so good. I will probably almost never pick against Charles Oliveira. I don't know what it will take. And you got some amazing guys coming up the ranks. You got Mateus Gamrot. You got Rafael Fiziev. You got Gregor Gillespie. You have some amazing guys coming up the ranks, some young guys, Arman Sarukian. You have that potential Volkanovski-Oliveira fight. But I don't know with any of those matchups. Obviously, they could be some of them could be farther down the road. I don't know with any of those matchups I would pick against Oliveira in them. Obviously, they're all hypothetical, and we have to see, in Oliveira's next few fights. But any of those fights would be amazing. Oliveira's still young. I could see him reigning as a champion for a long time, and he is still the lightweight champion. He beats Justin Gaethje. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. Don't forget to like the video, and thank you so much for watching.